Welcome to Codex, a history of video games. My name is Tyler Osby.
And I'm Mike Coletta.
And this week, we're back on the Zelda train. It's been like 8 episodes since we did an episode on Zelda.
Yeah.
It's been a little while.
Will we even remember what's happening? Oh, no.
Can you even tell the Legend of Zelda at this point? It's been so long.
I don't know. It's even more confusing than the chronology of the Legend of Zelda.
Oh my gosh. I saw that meme on Reddit that shows Link racing in Mario Kart 8. And it's like, what timeline is this in?
I love it.
Made me laugh.
It's a good one. It's a really good one. Today we're going to talk about Zelda, 3 games for Zelda. Ready? Four Swords Adventures,
Okay.
the Minish Cap, and Twilight Princess.
Okay.
So let's get on into it. The first one, Legend of Zelda 4 Swords Adventures, was released for the GameCube in Japan on March 18th, 2004, North America on June 7th, 2004, in Europe, January 05, and in Australia, April 05, once again showing that Australia really doesn't have a good time with release dates.
Yeah. Almost a year later, except Final Fantasy VII Remake came out like a week early in Australia this year.
You know what? So they held out for the right one. Good for
Yeah.
them. Good for them. So, the cool gimmick of this game is that the Game Boy Advance handheld game console, if you will, the Game Boy Advance itself, can be used as a controller on the GameCube. And in fact, when you buy this game, it comes with a link cable. If you live in North America and Europe, that is. That's where it would show up.
This game is so expensive to play because you got to have so many Game Boys and so many cables.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to have a Game Boy, though. You know, you can play it just GameCube, 4 people. With
Can
4
you?
controllers. Yeah. It's a game. It's a GameCube game. I mean, that's how I interpreted it. Am I going cray-cray? I'm not entirely sure.
I think there is a thing. Maybe I'm thinking of a different game, but I'm pretty sure
Well, there is
a game.
4 Swords. There is a game called The 4 Swords, which we covered in an earlier episode.
Yeah,
and that
that's
was Game Boy Advance only.
Right. I'm pretty sure that 4 Swords Adventures required 4 Game Boys and 4 link cables to play multiplayer on.
Really?
On GameCube.
That is bananas, then.
Yeah.
So much for my research.
It's a very expensive multiplayer game.
It really is. So the plot of this game is that Link finds out there's actually an evil version of Link, a Shadow Link. And that Shadow Link is trying to ruin Hyrule. And he's like, nope, I got to stop Shadow Link. So the game actually takes place chronologically a century after Twilight Princess in the quote-unquote child timeline. So that is the hero is victorious and then the child timeline. And it's actually the final game in this timeline chronologically. And the game actually has like 2 different versions of Dark Lord Ganondorf and then the Dark Beast Ganon. And it's just a bunch of stuff. And it's really confusing, but it's unique to 4 Swords Adventure. Is this thing? It's unique. Okay. Everything is about this game. There are actually 3 game modes for 4 Swords Adventures. If you want to play the main campaign, that's called Hyrulean Adventure. And this, just like the Game Boy Advance counterpart, 4 Swords, can be played with 1 to 4 players. And it actually is 8 worlds. Each world has 3 stages and then a boss battle. And so the graphics, and this was kind of the big negative review point of this game, is the graphics were a lot like the Game Boy Advance version, to the point that I looked at screenshots of this and I was like, wow, that just looks like a Game Boy. I thought this was a GameCube. Like in my mind, I was like, I thought it was going to straight up be looking like 3D, you know, down facing, kind of like a less polished version of that new version of Link's Awakening that came out for Switch, you know, just like a different, kind of like something like that. And it does not look like that. It looks very much like a Game Boy Advance game, but there are some effects in there from the Wind Waker. So it's like, it's weird. Like the players and the basic ground of the world are Game Boy Advance, and the atmospheric effects like clouds and like dust storms and fog are all like Wind Waker-y. So it's like a mix of the 2 games. But in Hyrulean Adventure, a lot of the same mechanics for 4 Swords were used. So you can, like, if you're playing by yourself, for example, you will actually have all 4 of the Link characters, and they're green, red, blue, and purple. And you can have them do like different like control positions or like how they move in like a kind of like a flock of birds. Like they'll like sit in formation. And
like playing Pikmin.
Yeah, exactly. You could have like a formation to them that'll unlock certain puzzles and defeat certain enemies. And so when you play as multiple friends in one game, then you're all each of those people. But if you're playing it by yourself, you control like one link or two links or three links, etc. So, or all four. So it's kind of different in that way. The one thing that players are encouraged to work together is to gather enough force gems to power the Force Sword. And if you don't do that by the time the boss is defeated, when you're on the boss levels, the dark barrier is reached. Or the dark barrier is reached results in having to go back to the beginning of the stage to collect more. Like you have to get all the force gems to beat the boss. So it's like a big thing about it. Yeah. But then it's kind of a cool take on it. They also have mini games too in the multiplayer mode at Tingle's Tower. Which appears in every single world, and you can gain extra multiplayer lives there. There's 8 games, and they are earned by playing through different stages in multiplayer mode. The mini games are like horse racing, hammer tag, monster hunting, and there's a bunch of other ones there.
Hammer tag sounds incredibly dangerous.
It's a very dangerous game. Like I played hammer tag with my friends as a kid, and we broke bones. Oof. You know, it's not a good thing to do. But there's the thing that was really exciting to me about this game is it actually had PvP multiplayer called Shadow Battle.
Whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's like a last Link standing, essentially. And just like Hyrule Adventure, you play as a different colored Link, and you have different tools to attack the other Links. So it's like Deathmatch, but with Links in Zelda. And there are 5 different battle arenas you can choose from. And you actually get 5 more bonus maps after you beat the campaign mode. And they actually are dark stages where they're the same as the first maps, but there's portals in the dark world appear, and the player has like limited vision, so it kind of makes it harder. Spooky. And they're spooky and scary. In each stage, there's random items, and they are actually usually similar to the items in Hyrule Adventure. There are like special objects in each stage that you can use too, that kind of, if you know the map, you can kind of take advantage of those. And there is a time limit. So like if you reach 0 and you haven't murdered everybody, then it's a tie game. So that one person, that one friend that sits out last and holds out and tries to survive.
Yeah, this is the PvP multiplayer mode in a game that I never knew that I wanted. I've never played Four Swords Adventures, and that sounds super fun.
Right? I never played this either. I mean, a lot of the GameCube games I completely missed that generation of, unfortunately, because I didn't own that system, so never got to play them. There is another game mode in Four Swords Adventures, but it was only released in the Japanese version of the game. It's called Navi Trackers, and I'm going to talk about this later because it's based off a standalone game called Tetris Trackers, but essentially in Navi Trackers, use a combination of your TV screen and the Game Boy Advance to search for members of Tetris Pirate Crew to gain as many stamps as possible within a game time limit. So it's kind of like you got to find these stamps, and there's like each player with the television screen showing you the basic map and the Tetra narrating the action. So it's like a single player mode is available, but you can also play it with friends and try to collect all this stuff. And if you don't play with friends, you actually play against Tingle, the fairy. You get to be like, hey, Tingle, guess what? I'm going to beat you at collecting stamps.
Tingle is always your friend, even if you don't have friends.
That's right. That's what should be the tagline of this game mode. Don't worry, Tingle will be your friend.
You can't say that.
Oh, that's a good point. At E3 2003, we're going to get into development. Nintendo showcased 2 Zelda games that would use Game Boy Advance connectivity, Four Swords and Tetris Trackers. Okay, so this is where we're talking about what happened with that game. In December of the same year, it was announced that both those games would be actually together on a single disc called Four Swords Plus. Four Swords Plus ended up coming out in Japan. That happened along with Shadow Battle. Like it was kind of like they were advertising it that way as like 3 games in one. Okay. And it was later announced in June 7th, 2004 that Hyrule Adventures and Navi Trackers would be sold as separate titles in the United States. So it came out as Four Swords Plus in Japan, and then they separated for the United States sale. And then the retail status of Shadow Battle was not really known at the time until it was finally decided, okay, Hyrule Adventure and Shadow Battle will be bundled together in Four Swords Adventures in the US, and you just won't get Navi Trackers ever. in the United States. So
Aw.
kind of a bummer. Yeah. And despite the fact that they were actually like translations for the PAL region version of the game finished in October, the game for European release wasn't released until January 2005, and people didn't really know what the reason for this was. And then they speculate the next game we're going to talk about, the Minish Cap, actually was the reason that it was all slowed down because they don't want to compete with themselves. Essentially, they thought that it would cannibalize the Nintendo DS sales if they released Four Swords Adventures in Europe the same time that the Minish Cap came out.
Gotcha.
So in 2006, Nintendo Power actually rated Four Swords Adventures as the 48th best game made on a Nintendo system. Isn't that crazy?
That's pretty high praise.
It got an 86 out of 100 based on 55 reviews on Metacritic. And actually, it was sold around 250,000 copies. And it sold 127,000 units in Japan. And those sales figures are from June 2004. So I imagine there's more than that. But it didn't really sell like a ton of copies like all the other
I didn't
stuff
really
did.
know anybody with it. I think partially because the multiplayer required such a setup. Like you really couldn't do it. Like most people just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, I don't remember any of my friends playing this game at all. Like think about it, I'm like, I don't think anyone really played it.
Yeah, especially because this was like one of the only, like, or very few games that even got anything out of buying 4 Link cables and 4 Game Boy Advances. Like you were basically just doing it for one game if you did that. And I mean, I guess the idea is that like, oh, invite your friends over. They all have their own Game Boys and they all have their own cables. But I guess there weren't that many reasons to buy the cable. And so most people had their own Game Boys, but they didn't have the cable.
It's like, it's probably like 4 families in the United States at that time who had all the pieces, parts. And they're like, we can do it. We can play this game. And they had so much fun. And none of
they're
us
still
ever
playing
knew.
it today. They had so much fun. They didn't tell anybody about it.
They're never doing it. They're never they're never playing any other game. They're just playing Four Swords Adventures. Anyway, time to move on to The Legend of Zelda, the Minish Cap. I believe, didn't we have an email saying that this was someone's favorite game? I believe we did.
Yeah, somebody
I can't remember the person's
Minish
name. But thank you for that email. And if you want to email us, codexerchypodcast@gmail.com. There you go, right there. But anyway, this was released on November 4th, 2004 in Japan, 2004 in Europe, January 10th, 2005 in North America, and of course, always last, April 7th, 2005 in Australia. So, by the way, I noticed that we saw something about the Minish Cap earlier in the isn't that what we just talked about that with the release for the PAL version? Yeah. So I believe that it was actually just the DS that those notes got it wrong. That the DS came out in late 2005. So
in North America, it came out in late 2004. So I think the idea was let's not put 2 Zelda games out that are not on the DS because otherwise nobody's going to buy a DS. They're going to buy all these great Zelda games we're putting out.
You're right. That's it. That's why. I just wanted to double check that I cleared that up with the team. You know, everyone's on the same page.
That makes sense to me anyway.
Yeah. So the Minish Cap is your standard top-down Zelda, but the big gameplay mechanic here is the Minish Cap allows you to transform into Minish size. You know, Minish, mini-ish. That's kind of what they're going for. You got to go through Minish portals, which are all over Hyrule, to turn into Minish size. Minish size is essentially a lot like in Super Mario, where you go into like the Jumbo Land and you're really small. You know, it's a lot like that. That's what this whole game is about. It's like being giant. So actually, it's kind of fun because some of the regular monsters in the game are bosses because you fight their giant version because you're Minish sized, which I thought was pretty funny. But it's a really cool, interesting idea. I mean, it's cool that they've found a new thing. You know, I feel like every Zelda game does a good job at finding like a new thing to do. I would say in Breath of the Wild, for example, they're all about food, all about cooking. You know, who knew? But yeah, it's
Top
really
Chef,
neat.
Hyrule Edition.
That's right. In the future is Hyrule Top Chef for sure.
The Great Hylian Baking Show.
Oh, the other cool thing about the Minish Cap too is because there's like Little Link and Big Link, Hyrule Town, which is like your headquarters, you know, your safe area in the whole game, actually ends up being a dungeon when you're Minish sized inside of it because it's really dangerous. You're a little mini, you're a little baby Link.
Yeah, if you're a little baby Link.
Other new features to the Minish Cap are kinstones. Kinstones are like little artifacts that Link can find throughout his quest, and you go up to characters that have thought bubbles over their heads, and you can try to fuse their kinstone piece with your kinstone piece to make it match. And if you do it, you get like a chest appearing in the game world, or access to a secret area, or crazy events happening among characters. Kinstones are like those heart necklaces that are broken in half, and then you link them together with a friend, or like a Cinderella shoe. You know, like, do our kinstones fit, Tyler? Will we ever know if our kinstones fit? I hope
think
so.
They fit for sure.
That means we're true friends. That's what that means.
Yeah.
The Minish Cap also has some figurine side quests. So what you do is you get these shells found all over the world in hidden areas, and you actually take them to this like gashapon machine, you know, where you dump like the ones where you dump a quarter in and you turn the crank and something pops out, and you get like figurines from the world. The key with these collectibles, though, is you have to beat the area with the bad guy collectible first of that statue before you can get it in the gashapon machine.
Okay.
And I'm like, hey, you know what? Collectibles in Zelda, I'm a guy who got all the toys in Doom Eternal. That's a not so humble brag. I just really like the little plastic toys. And I think it's ridiculous that you can't buy them on the internet.
They are adorable.
Bethesda doesn't sell it. I want an adorable, cute little, like little imp or a cacodemon.
Just let Mike
you know?
give you his money, Bethesda.
Yeah, I just want to give you all of my money, Bethesda. I can't even pay rent. I just want to give you money for toys, and I'll sit and I'll live with my toys. I don't need a house or anything. Okay, so the Minish Cap actually has a lot. Not a lot, but a number of enhancements that benefit because this game is on the Game Boy Advance. Now you're like, hey, Mike, Game Boy Advance is a super old console. Yeah, it is. But back then, it was amazing. Okay, things they could do with the Game Boy Advance hardware. First, they could make that camera angle a lot closer, get more detail in there, get more shadows in there, make it look really pretty. All right. And in the overworld and in dungeons, the game replaces the traditional item interface of the handheld Zelda games with actual pictures of the items.
Oh.
Or like actions with buttons, you know, like you can actually do stuff, you know? It's kind of like more like the interface of Ocarina of Time or the Wind Waker thrown in there. Enemies include a lot of, you know, the familiar faces, but now they're in better detail. You can see them, you know, it's nicer. They also have some really cool special actions. So for example, they have like bombs and arrows and Pegasus boots, like the 3D games, which I think they had some of those in the older games. But the Minish Cap had 3 brand new items for the game. And those are the Mole Mitts, the Gust Jar, and the Cane of Pachi. I think it's Pachi, Pacci.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And the Mole Mitts allowed you to dig through dirt barriers to look at new areas. You know, it's essentially like you gave Link, if he was a Pokemon, dig. It's exactly what happened.
Cool.
That's what the Mole Mitts did. The Gust Jar can actually suck in nearby items and substances, and you can actually suck up certain enemies and fire them as like bad guys, which is kind of a cool item. And then the Cane of Pachi can flip certain objects over and allow Link to launch himself out of holes in the ground. You're essentially pole vaulting with Link, which is not something you could have done on those older Game Boy games. Isn't that exciting?
Wow. That is exciting.
The Game Boy Advance also has a combat system in it that's better than previous installments. Like, for example, you can actually do some techniques from like 3D games. You know what I mean? Like you can actually, they have like, you can copy yourself. You can move with your sword. You have like a sword that you can glow. You can also use these things to solve puzzles, like push large blocks out of the way, hit those switches simultaneously. And I believe, if I recall, and I haven't gotten to it yet, you can also like do the thing where you like roll, you know, on the ground. But
yeah, where it feels like you're going faster, but probably not actually going faster.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it does. You can roll. So we're going to talk about the development of the Minish Cap right now, okay? But we need to go back to episode 90 when I last talked about that.
Wow,
Do we remember
2 months ago.
Yeah, it was so long ago. Capcom, if you recall, and their scenario writing subsidiary that only wrote scenarios was called Flagship. They were the ones that made Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages for the Game Boy Color. Well, after that, they began work on a new Zelda game for the Game Boy Advance, and work on that title then became suspended because they wanted to have 4 Swords come out. But then, in April 2003, our hero, Shigeru Miyamoto, and Eiji Aonuma announced that development on what would later be called the Minish Cap was underway. Okay.
All right.
Nintendo actually launched a Minish Cap website in September 2004 that showed concepts of the shrinking ability, so everyone could see you shrinking. The game definitely had like a cartoonish style, like Wind Waker, and it was trying to go for like a fairy tale feel. Like, you know, that's kind of what the shrinking came from, like the world of the fairies. You know, it's a fairy tale story. And they wanted to make Hyrule Town feel like the city's central hub and feel like an actual like living, breathing city with people going about their lives. And it combined that shrinking ability with unique angles and perspective of like the safe town. Like I said before, like, you know, what was once a safe hub can turn into a dungeon if you become like miniature in certain areas. So it's pretty neat. Aonuma was also impressed by what the development team was able to achieve with Hyrule Town. He actually kind of compared it to the Clock Town in Majora's Mask. He's like, man, this thing looks great. The game's Gust Jar was inspired by a gourd that can suck up anything, and that was from a novel called The Journey to the West, which I've never read, but that was an interesting fact, so I thought I'd include it for all you Journey to the West fans out there. Also fans of gourds in general. Okay? It's an underrated food? Fruit?
Sure.
Vegetable? Is a gourd a fruit or a vegetable?
Storage device?
This is not Codex the History of Produce, that's for sure. Several other aspects of the gameplay were also inspired or directly lifted from Four Swords and Four Swords Adventures, both of which Minish Cap is actually a prequel to those games. So the idea of shrinking into Minish form came as an extension from the Nat Hat from Four Swords. So like, while that was just like a small part of Four Swords, they're like, let's make a whole game about the Nat Hat, but call it the Minish Cap. And then like make the whole world mini and all that stuff. The game contains actually one inside joke. And this is actually going to have to go back to episode 90. So remember when Oracle of Ages and Oracle Seasons was actually 3 games?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a side quest in the game of the Minish Cap. It's completely optional, where 3 characters, Din, Nehru, and Farour, they're actually from the Oracle titles. They want to come stay at your house, but you can only give them 2 rooms. So one person doesn't get a room in the house. And this is kind of a joke of the game Oracle of Secrets that never came out and was scrapped. So you're seriously pushing one person out on the street, much like they did with Oracle of Secrets.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a deep cut too. That's that one. You really got to be in the know to catch that one.
You really got to know that one. So, first thing first in the Zelda series, the game was actually released in European territories before North America. The main reason for this, the Nintendo DS. With the European DS launch scheduled for spring 2005, Nintendo of Europe pushed to make the Minish Cap its handheld Christmas killer app. They wanted it to be like the Christmas thing that came out there before the DS came out. So the game is included in the list of Game Boy Advance games that is now available for download on the 3DS Virtual Store, because that's another way you can play it. If you want to play the Minish Cap now, get that 3DS version. In Europe, the game was available either as a standalone or a packaged game as part of a special pack, which included 25,000 copies. That's how many they made. A limited edition of the Zelda-themed Game Boy Advance SP. This thing looks so cool. It had the Triforce matte gold in it.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. The Game Boy Advance SP, by the way, a very cool console. I have one. It looks like the Nintendo controller, the original NES controller, but this one looks sweet. It's almost like the flip phone of Game Boys. Really cool.
Yeah.
And they actually produced 7 24-karat gold-plated Game Boy Advance SP consoles, and they gave 6 of those away to golden ticket people inside their Triforce SP package. It was like Willy Wonka.
Whoa.
They were actually autographed by Miyamoto, too, at the opening of the Nintendo World Store in New York. Is the Nintendo World Store still open in New York? Is that still a thing?
I think so.
That's cool. Anywho, the Minish Cap had an 89 out of 100 on Metacritic, and it actually was the best-selling game in its debut week in Japan. It sold 350,000 copies overall in Japan. In North America, the Minish Cap sold 217,000 copies in its first month, January 2005, but Overall, it's sold 680,000 copies in the U.S. and earned $21 million by August 2006. That was just 2006 numbers, too. It's probably gotten
Not
so
bad.
many more than that. So yeah, like I said, the DS version of the Minish Cap, I believe it's still on the 3DS store. I mean, I hope it's still on there. I said that, and I'm standing by it. So I think that's probably the best way to play it for now. I mean, you could go try to find a used copy of Game Boy Advance, but I just remember hearing things about the Game Boy Advance batteries, like the in-cartridge batteries, that they can go. Is that right? So it's like buying a used copy is kind of dicey. Or if you own the game already, you can just totally play it on an emulator. Totally legal.
Yeah.
But you have to own that game. Gotta own it.
That's right. That's
Them's
right.
the rules.
It is important to note. So the Minish Cap is on the 3DS store, but you can't just buy it normally. It was part of the 3DS Ambassador program, which was, I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I am not familiar with that. Enlighten me, please.
So the 3DS came out in, I want to say 2010, and it was like $250 or something. And then only a few months later, I want to say it was like 3 or 4 months later, they dropped the price down to like $200. And people were all mad about that because they were like, you dropped the price so quickly after the 3DS came out? What the heck, Nintendo? And so Nintendo was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you all these Game Boy Advance games for free, and we're never going to sell them ever. And to this day, they still haven't sold them. Minish Cap was one of them. I think Metroid Fusion was one of them. I think Super Mario or Mario Kart Super Circuit was one of them. There's like a few Game Boy Advance games that they never ended up selling. And like big name Game Boy Advance games too. It was like kind of crazy. They weren't just like throwaway garbage games. They were some big name games. So technically you can get Minish Cap on your DS, but I don't think you can anymore. Like if you don't have it already, you can't get it.
Oh, well, looks like you're going to have to go find yourself a old Game Boy Advance copy. I believe in you.
Yep.
I'm sure you can find it.
Yeah, there's probably hacks you could do on your 3DS. But of course, you need to legally own a game if you're going to
Totally.
install it
We're
that
all
way.
about legality on this podcast. We're not breaking rules. We're learning about
That's right.
boards and what they are. Everything's great here. All right. So
Codex, History of Produce.
History of Produce. I like that, actually. We're going to do that as an April Fool's Day episode. Okay. Finally, we're going to come to The Legend of Zelda, The Twilight Princess. Oh, this game.
Oh, I love Twilight Princess.
It was released on both the Wii and the GameCube. That's going to be important when we talk about its development later. But the Wii version came out first, but most of them were released like I believe it's a month apart technically, but it's November or December 2006. I didn't want to write all the release dates down. They're on Wikipedia if you want to look them up specifically. But they all came out around then. Full disclosure, before we start, I never beat Twilight Princess. I know, I'm a noob. But once again,
big time.
the problem of borrowing and playing on someone else's console, they'll take it away from you. And that's what happened, because I was in the middle of this game and I never got to finish it, which is really sad. And this game, I feel like, is screaming for a Switch port. This game.
Oh my gosh. They already have an HD version of it that they made for the Wii U. It's like ready. It should be ready to go. You know, just
ship it.
How hard can it be? Just flip the switch, whatever. I don't know. I don't know how to make games.
So this is a full-fledged 3D Zelda game, a la Ocarina of Time or Wind Waker. The story is about Link trying to stop Hyrule from being engulfed by the parallel dimension known as the Twilight Realm. Doesn't that sound dark and scary? Kind of spooky,
It is
right?
dark and scary. Very
To
spooky.
do so, he actually has to take on the form of both a Hylian and a wolf. That's right.
What?
You become a wolf at some times. And he is assisted by the mysterious Midna. And the game takes place hundreds of years after Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask in an alternate timeline from the Wind Waker, for all you chronology fans out there. When Link actually enters the Twilight Realm, the void that corrupts part of Hyrule, he transforms into a wolf, as I said before. And it's kind of fun because when you're Wolf Link, you get certain advantages, like you can move really fast, although riding Epona is technically faster still than being Wolf Link, just to throw it out there. You can dig new holes and create new passages, uncover buried items, you have improved senses, all that wolf stuff. You can smell real great. And then Midna's on your back riding you. And Midna is like an imp, is how I would describe her, kind of. That's a good way to describe her.
Yeah, right? I don't know if she has like a technical like species,
Yeah. Yeah, Midna also uses an energy field to attack enemies, and she helps you jump long distances, and she eventually allows you to warp to any preset location through the overworld that you found already, which is pretty neat. Lets you teleport. So you can also use your Link senses to see and listen to the wandering spirits of those affected by the Twilight, as well as hunt for enemy ghosts named Pose in the series. Ooh, but yeah, Wolf Link's pretty cool. I remember really digging Wolf Link. Also, the Twilight Zone is scary.
Yeah. I actually disagree with Wolf Link being cool. I did not enjoy those sections, and I hated every time I had to turn into a wolf.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, man, a divisive moment on this podcast.
I know.
Me, pro Wolf Link. You, anti-Wolf Link. Who's going to win? Only one way to find out. We both turn into wolves and fight each other. That's the only way. We got to figure this out now. All right. So also I should mention one cool thing about the Twilight Princess AI is it's so much smarter than previous Zelda AIs. Like, they will actually react to you killing their friends and to arrows or slingshot pellets that you inevitably miss because you're using a Wii controller. That's going to happen, okay? And they can also detect you from a greater distance than was possible in previous games. So this game really did feel good. You know, obviously now it's not a feature we really think about, you know, like think about Breath of the Wild, that's just a given. But back then, it was a pretty big deal that they could actually know you, you know? They still have some Stormtrooper moments, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's pretty neat. The big new feature of this game, though, is that it was released on the Wii and therefore had motion sensors built into the game and built-in speaker. And the speaker's kind of fun because it would emit certain noise like your bowstring when you shot an arrow. Midna would laugh into it, which was kind of creepy but cool at the same time. She would give you advice. And then also the chime when you discovered secrets came out of that speaker in the controller. So fun. The player actually controls Link's sword by swinging the Wiimote. That's right. You get to use it using the Wiimote and the nunchuck. And the GameCube version, by the way, is a little different because you get like free camera control. You have to use this thing called look around mode when you use the Wii to look around but in GameCube it's just like a free camera. But the downside of the GameCube version is only 2 of Link's secondary weapons can be equipped at a time as opposed to 4. So yeah, you be the judge. Do you want camera control or do you want 4 weapons to equip? That's what you have to figure out. I played it on the Wii. Did you play it on the Wii?
I did not. I played it on the GameCube, and I am convinced that the GameCube version is the real version of that game. And I can tell you why. I don't know if you're going to get to it a little bit later, but I can tell you why.
It involves a certain hand.
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting to it later. Don't even worry about it. But when we get to it, you can chime in and we can get to it together as friends do, and then we can really heal this rift between us caused by Wolf Link. Okay, so it'll be good. I actually played the Wii version of this, though, and I was all about, like, this is the future of gaming, like in college as a freshman.
Oh, waggle.
Playing this in the dorm, being like, motion controls, this is amazing. And it's not, but it's still fun, and it was a fun time in my life, and I don't regret it at all. So let's talk about development. This is going to take a while, by the way. The development of this game, the development section on Wikipedia was huge. Okay, I tried to cut some stuff out. I like looking at it. It's gigantic because it turns out we're getting to a time period where people actually cared more about the history of their games and recorded more. So that's really what's going on, which is a cool thing. But in 2003, Nintendo announced that the new Legend of Zelda game was in the works. Okay, and it was going to be on the GameCube, and it was cel shaded, and it was just like the Wind Waker. What? Oh no! Oh. And guess what? People freaked out. Specifically, the person that freaked out the most was the people that worked for Nintendo of America, because they told the game director, AJ Aonuma, who we've talked about before, that, we had really bad sales for the Wind Waker because of that cartoony appearance, and I don't know how I feel about it. And then Aonuma got kind of concerned. He's like, I don't know if this is going to be a problem. But then our hero, producer, Shigeru Miyamoto, was like, hey, you want to create a more realistic Zelda game. I get it. But let's focus not just on the presentation, but focus on something. Let's focus on something cool, you know? And they decided to focus on a gameplay item that was horseback combat. This was what they decided to do beginning, before they actually changed everything over, because now we obviously know that the Twilight Princess does not look like Wind Waker. But before, Shigeru Miyamoto's like, don't freak out. Don't go to changing the whole game's presentation. Just focus on this one thing. And it's actually kind of cool because the lead character designer, Keisuke Nishimori, decided to start like taking up horseback riding so that they could learn what it feels like to ride a horse. I thought that was kind of cool. as like research. And so in 4 months, Aonuma's team did actually get like the realistic look of horseback riding and horseback combat. And they revealed that in the trailer at E3 in 2004. And this is also kind of the time where they told everyone, hey, this is not the Wind Waker 2, which at one time this was called the Wind Waker 2. Like straight, yeah. And everyone's like, no, abort, get it out of there. No way.
Nintendo of America's like, we can't sell your garbage.
Yeah. So they were like, no, because they actually already admitted that in 2007, they came out with, they're going to come out with the Phantom Hourglass, which would be essentially a sequel to the Wind Waker in a way. So it's not like the Wind Waker will get its own sequel, but this one's going to be a completely different game. So Miyamoto explained in interviews that the graphical style was chosen to satisfy demand, and then it would be a better fit for the theme of the older incarnation of Link. And so the game actually still runs on a modified version of the Wind Waker engine. It just looks completely different.
Much more realistic.
Much more realistic. As is, like, it's very much more Ocarina of Time than Wind Waker. Now, we all know the two worlds motif is not new to The Legend of Zelda, but the concept of Link transforming into a wolf straight up came from a dream that Aonuma had while on a business trip overseas.
Wow.
He dreamt he was a wolf, locked inside a cage, and after he woke up, he was confused and disoriented, and he didn't remember where he was, and that's why we have Wolf Link. It's from a crazy dream. I'm so into that.
Crazy Wolf Link dreams.
Crazy Wolf Link dreams become crazy wolf realities. Tyler hates it. Mike loves it. Will they ever reconcile? Most likely, because it's not a big deal. Okay, so Aonuma actually decided to work on the story for the game, but he did not do that alone by any means. It actually underwent several changes. Scenario writers Mitsuhiro Takano and Aya Kyogoku, once again, we're playing Mike Butcher's Japanese, actually decided to make those changes and work on it. Takano created the script for the story scenes, while Kyogoku and Takayuki Ikaku handled the actual in-game script. So they were the ones that did the script. The other guy did the story, like kind of beat it out the story. Originally, Link was actually planned to be a wolf from the beginning. Oh, man, that would have pissed you off so much, Tyler.
Yeah, I probably would have still, to this day, not played this game.
But this actually was changed for a very good reason, and that was because they were really worried that people new to the Zelda series would just straight up turn it off. So they wanted to ease you into being Link and then have you become a wolf later. The game is a lot darker than previous Zelda games. There is a story regarding children of Ordon Village getting kidnapped, and it's a pretty dark thing, for a Zelda game. So that's there. But from a gameplay perspective, the Twilight portions of the game were definitely inspired by the fact that in previous Zelda games, and when you think about it, it's totally true, all the dungeons are completely separate from the overworld. Like you're going into a thing, you know it's a dungeon, you know it's going to start. That's why they kind of wanted to bend the rules a little bit with the Twilight Princess and make it so that you kind of didn't know you were going into a dungeon, or that the dungeon and the overworld bled together. So that was added in. I thought that was a cool touch and definitely a cool thing. And they definitely do that in Breath of the Wild. Like, you'll be just going somewhere and then you find Eventide Island.
Oh, Eventide Island, my favorite Zelda thing ever, probably.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more at the end because it was so great for me when I played it recently. So all of these ideas about the wolf and the separate worlds and everything, this all started the game development. Okay, but then as these ideas were kind of figured out, Aonuma actually then left his team to go work on the Minish Cap for Game Boy Advance. So he left them. He's like, you guys got this. See you in a bit. He works on the Minish Cap, comes back, and everything is pure chaos. They're struggling to figure out how to get this thing to work. Aonuma also felt like the gameplay lacked the caliber of innovation that they had in like Phantom Hourglass, which was being developed with touch controls for the DS at the same time, And the Wii was in development at this time under the codename Revolution. If you didn't know, it was called the Nintendo Revolution at the time.
Yeah, I remember that.
And then Miyamoto came in, our hero, and thought that the Revolution's pointing device for the Wii Remote was really well suited for like shooting arrows in Zelda. And he suggested, hey, Aonuma, you should consider using it and seeing if you can do it. And then Aonuma himself actually figured that he would be making a Zelda game for the Wii eventually, but he thought that Twilight Princess would be separate and it would just be for GameCube, and then he'd move on to the Wii game. But his team actually began working on developing a point-based interface for the bow and arrow, and he found that it was actually kind of fun and gave the game a whole new feel, just like it did for Phantom Hourglass. So he was confident this was the only way to proceed, was just, we got to make a Wii version. But we also told consumers we would get a GameCube release for them in 2005, and I don't want to disappoint them. And then Satoru Iwata, remember him? Okay, he's in charge of Nintendo. Yep, he was like, you know what? I think if you get a good game to people, they'll be happy in the end. They'll realize they're getting a finished product. So that's what they did. They started working on both versions at the same time and just delayed it a year. And transferring Twilight Princess from the GameCube to the Wii was actually really simple, because the Wii was built to be compatible with the GameCube. So it was not that hard to actually change it. They just had to make the motion controls different. They did at E3 2005 as a fun marketing thing, give people DS cards that contained a preview version for the Twilight Princess, which I thought was pretty neat.
That's cool.
Yeah. They also announced that the new Zelda, which would be the Twilight Princess, would appear on the Wii, but it was not clear to the media if this meant Twilight Princess or a different game. That looked kind of mysterious. Ooh, mystery. So the team actually worked on a Wii control scheme. They adapted the camera control and fighting mechanics to the new Wii interface, and a prototype was created that used the swinging gesture to control the sword from the first-person viewpoint, which is kind of weird. Wouldn't it have been weird to play in Zelda in first person?
Yeah.
But they thought it was kind of strange, and it lacked like a variety in Link's movements, because when Link, like in third person, uses his sword, he's moving a lot. It looks really cool, and you didn't really see that when you did like a first person thing. So they switched it back. Aonuma also felt it was weird to swing the remote with the right hand to control Link's left hand. So guess what they did? They mirrored the entire game for the Wii version. And Tyler, we have reached your fact of the episode. How do you feel?
What? Say that again? Sorry.
How do you feel?
Oh, so here's how I feel. Link is traditionally left-handed in almost every single release of Zelda games. He was left-handed, of course, in the GameCube version of Twilight Princess. So when they switched it over to him being right-handed on the Wii version, I think that alone is enough to make it just non-canon, right? It's a right-handed Link, not okay. But the fact that they also took the entire game and mirrored it is so interesting. And part of me wants to be like, why mirror the entire game just because you switch the hand of the sword? But the other part of me is like, dang, that must mean like there are all kinds of things that guys like me don't think about when games are being developed, such that it's like, oh, if we move his sword to his other hand, we have to flip the entire game because the whole game is designed around the sword being in this hand. That's crazy to me. So they had to they mirrored the whole game. They had to change the signage like in the game, if like where it said west on GameCube, they had to change it so it said east on Wii and stuff like that. And that is nuts to me. And if you buy the HD remake on the Wii U, you can play it in traditional left-handed version where you play it's basically the GameCube version, or you can play, I think maybe they call it like mastered levels or something, but you can play the flipped version where he is right-handed and the whole thing is switched. But I think the controls are better on the GameCube because the swinging the Wii remote to like slice the sword it's the same thing as pushing the button. Like you don't actually have any control over what happens when you swing the Wii remote. It's just like basically moving the Wii remote is like pressing the B button. So I think it's better on the GameCube because then you can just actually press the B button
and just live your button life.
That's right. But when Skyward Sword comes out, that's when they get the like Motion Plus add-on, and that's when it actually becomes very cool to use the motion controls on the Wii.
Oh, we haven't gotten there yet, though, Tyler.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
But yeah, so another cool fact about the mirror thing, too, is the actual official player's guide for the game has a section in the back for the GameCube, and it's all the maps mirrored.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah, so because the actual GameCube, the Twilight Princess player guide is focused on the Wii version, so you have to have those mirror image map for GameCube users. If you buy GameCube users, not humors, if you use the GameCube version, you have to have that. So there were a lot of problems with the controls. I'm just going to breeze over this real quick because it's a lot of people that saying, but you should do this and you should do that. Essentially what happened is there were people that didn't really like the fighting mechanics of the new interface. They thought it was kind of strange and clunky at first. And so they had to go back and rework everything, specifically working on like targeting and having it so there's this thing with the Wii controls on Twilight Princess, and it's kind of hard to explain, but there's one button that you use to do a lot of actions based on you approaching something, and that made it so that it was much easier to control on the Wii, essentially, because there was like a thing where I believe if you use the trigger button for a lot of different things in the game, and it's like you open a door, you walk up to press the trigger button, pick up an object, it's like becomes like the universal button for an action. And that just kind of helped with the Wii button. Also fixing the camera too, because the camera was a disaster at first. And then they had to add the free look mode to help people out to solve puzzles. The game's score was actually composed by Toru Minegishi and Asuka Ota, and then Koji Kondo, our best friend, was the sound supervisor for everything. And Minegishi took charge of composition and sound design in Twilight Princess, and he provided all of the field and the dungeon music in the game, which I thought was pretty neat. Now, there was one big technical issue with Twilight Princess, and there's a lot of tech jargon I'm about to just spit out there. Okay, I copy pasted this from Wikipedia because I didn't know what I was saying, and I'm just going to read it, and tech people will understand what I'm saying. You ready for it, Tyler? You can help decipher it. Okay. Following the discovery of a buffer overflow vulnerability in the Wii version of Twilight Princess, an exploit known as the, quote, Twilight hack was developed, allowing the execution of custom code from secure digital card on the console. A specifically designed save file would cause the game to load unsigned code, which could include executable and linkable format, programs, and homebrew Wii applications. Versions 3.3 and 3.4 of the Wii menu prevented copying exploited save files onto the console until circumvention methods were discovered, and version 4.0 and the Wii menu patched the vulnerability. So essentially you would just like put in an SD card, boot up Twilight Princess, it would screw up your system, and then you could put third-party stuff on it.
Yeah. It's like, did you ever do a soft mod for a Xbox, original Xbox console?
No, I didn't.
Oh, it works very similarly, where you load up like a hacked save file. And I think, I want to say that for Twilight Princess, the thing that gets hacked specifically is the name of your horse. So what they do is you modify the save file to change the name of the horse to be something that's like extremely long and probably very specific on what they actually have to make it. And then that sort of causes the system to just sort of malfunction and start executing code wherever you tell it to. And then you basically get access to all of the Wii and can run homebrew applications and stuff like that.
Oh, man. Yeah. So they fixed it, though. But I thought it was important to mention. There was a Twilight hack.
Yep.
So Tyler mentioned it already, but there is a remastered version of the Twilight Princess on Wii U called The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD. I'm going to throw it out there and say this is the reason. This is the way you should play the game. This is the way you should play the game now, because 100%. This one added amiibo functionality. And one of the cool things is if you use the Wii exclusive Wolf Link, a Wii U exclusive Wolf Link amiibo figurine, you got a dungeon called the Cave of Shadows. That was a Wii U exclusive dungeon.
Yeah.
Isn't that cool? Also, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, you get carryover saves to that game from the Wii U version. That's neat, too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's really cool. So this is what I need to know. Do I need to start collecting amiibos? Like, I don't have any amiibos. Are they cool? Am I missing out, Tyler?
They are cool, especially because you're playing Breath of the Wild right now. There are some cool amiibo things you can get. Like if you get the amiibo of the Nintendo 64 version of Zelda, or of Link, well, and Zelda too. But if you scan those, you can scan them once per day, and you have a shot at getting a chest with the costume from Ocarina of Time. And there's a Toon Link one too if you buy the Toon Link amiibo. It's basically DLC but hidden behind random chance and buying an action figure.
I think I need to start collecting toys. As I said earlier, I love me some toys. Looking at you, Doom toys. I'm trying to give you my money.
They are very fun. And I remember when I got mine, there was like a shortage of the ones that had unlocks for Breath of the Wild. This was like shortly after the Switch came out. And so I got my buddy Matt in Japan to get me some amiibos and send them over here for me and a friend of mine, because they were actually available in Japan and they were of not ridiculous price. So that was fun.
Did you get the thank you, Matt in Japan, hero of the podcast, Matt in Japan. Did you get the chest though with the cool costumes eventually?
I did, yeah. It took me probably 2 weeks of scanning each one every day to try to get, because sometimes you get the hat, sometimes you get the chest piece, the like pants or the boots or whatever, and you didn't get something every time you did it, and you could only do it once per day.
And the way amiibos work, you just put them on top of your screen, right? And they just scan it?
Yeah, I think it's the right Joy-Con. You put it on top of the joystick, I think.
That's cool.
How you're supposed to do it. Yeah.
Anyway, so that's the way you should play the Twilight Princess game. As far as the game goes, Twilight Princess, it's a 95 out of 100 for the Wii version on Metacritic. Everyone loves it. It was 96 out of 100, though, for the GameCube version. So there you go,
Plus
Tyler.
1 point for being proper-handedness.
Mm-hmm. And it is the highest rated game of 2006 on Metacritic, period.
Wow.
Yeah, quite the reward, or title. As of September 30th, 2015, the game has sold 8.85 million copies worldwide across both platforms, making it the second best-selling Zelda game behind Breath of the Wild.
That makes sense.
Yep. And like I said, you can play it on Wii, GameCube, or, again, Wii U. You can even buy it digitally on Wii U. I looked it up today. This game is like begging for a Switch port. Come on.
It really is. Come on. We need this. We need Wind Waker HD. We need Super Mario 3D World. And then I'm going to throw my Wii U away. In the garbage. Just kidding. I'll keep it around because I don't do that. But metaphorically, I'll throw it away in the garbage.
That's right. It's all a metaphor. Tyler, what you been playing?
Well, this week, I've been playing Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Ooh.
And let me tell you, Mike, it's everything I wanted out of this game. I'm not done with it yet. I'm about 10 hours in. I know that it goes a little bit off the rails at some point. Like I've kind of just sort of seen, I haven't had anything truly spoiled for me, but I know that there are some controversial decisions made toward the end of this. But I'm kind of okay with it. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, if it's not exactly the same as it was, then it's bad. Like I'm open-minded and I'm willing to accept some changes to the story if they're improvements. So I'm having a really, really great time. They've taken the beginning portion of Final Fantasy VII, like the whole Midgar portion, where it's probably the first 5 or 6 hours of the original game, and they've stretched it out into 30 hours, but it doesn't feel like it's full of filler. You know what I mean? It's there's all these side characters that get a little bit more backstory that you didn't get any backstory on, especially one in particular, Jessie. You learn a lot more about her, and she's kind of a bit of a throwaway character in the original game, so that's really cool. And I've just been having a great time playing that. I played a little bit more Doom this week as well, and I think that's pretty much it. Most of my free time has been Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Friend?
Oh, yeah! Gears of War 4. We're on the last act. We're almost done, and then we can move on to Gears 5, which is not Gears of War 5, as I found out recently. It's just Gears 5.
Just Gears 5, and then we can do episodes on them.
Yeah.
So we could probably do an episode on the new the first ones anyway. But it was real fun. I'm having a really good time playing it.
Me
too. It's going to make me sad when it's over.
The fourth one is a real big increase in quality of just all around. I mean, the gameplay is a lot better. The graphics are, of course, better because it's a new generation, but also the storyline really kicks it up a notch in the fourth game.
Way
I enjoyed it a lot.
better. Yeah, it's so much better. Super into it. I mean, we'll see how it ends, but still, so far, loving it. Papa Phoenix.
But I care so much more about all the characters and it took me 3 games to really start to care about some of the characters in the original Gears of War, and only because we had spent 30 or 40 hours with them by that point, and I just cared about them because we'd spent so much time with them. But all these new characters in Gears of War 4, I'm totally on board already, and we're only 4 acts in. So,
me too. I love it so much. So great.
Yep. What have you been playing, Mike?
I've been playing a lot of Breath of the Wild. I'm doing shrine hunting again, and I'm loving it. Having a good time. I had one moment that peeved me, though. Yeah, I got peeved, everybody.
Oh, no.
Okay. I started playing this DLC called Trial of the Sword. Super fun. Bought the DLC. Might as well give it a go, right?
Mm-hmm.
I die in a silly way, not really thinking much of it. after playing this DLC for an hour, and it throws me back to before I went in the DLC. No autosave points. And I like wasted an hour, and I was so pissed. Yeah, I just was like, I was about to turn it off, and I'm like, no, the shrine hunting's still fun. Just come back to this later. And I'm just bummed. I'm just really bummed about it. Granted, the DLC was only $20 for the season pass. Like, I shouldn't be upset about it, but I am upset about that still. I'm having a good time, though.
When a game doesn't respect your time, that feels bad, Yeah,
that really does feel bad. And I don't know if that's supposed to be like a challenge thing to it, but if I'd have known that going in, I would have been like, oh, I would have just done this later. But I was just kind of like, hey, I discovered something like looking in the great forest, So I'll just go talk to the big tree and then put my sword in and see what happens. And then it just kind of all fell apart from there. But yeah, I'm having a good time. I'm loving it. Definitely enjoying like getting really... I just want to wear that classic green outfit when I go fight Ganon. That's all I want, is to look like classic Link when I go beat him up.
You got to get those amiibos then, man.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I could do... Because I heard when you get 120 shrines, though, you get the actual suit. The updated version of the green suit. So, and I'm at 105 shrines right now. So I'm doing some work.
That's pretty good. You're almost there then.
Yeah, I'm almost there. I mean, I'm having a really good time. I'm also like, if I find something cool, I just go look at it because I'm like, this is fun. I'm just really exploring the game. And also some of the shrine quests are like pretty intense. You got to like go kill a dragon or something. It's nuts.
Dang.
I also goofed and I went around with no arrows, like regular arrows, for a really long time, and I used up all my nice ones.
Oh, no.
But, yeah, I was like, oh, I didn't realize how expensive buying a fire arrow is. It's like $20 an arrow. It's crazy. The economy is crazy in Breath of the Wild. But I've been playing a lot of that. Been playing some Apex with friends, and then playing Gears with you. It's been a really good time. Really fun. So, enjoying it. Do you want to do our email? Let's do this email.
Sure.
You want to read it? You want me to read it?
You read it.
All right. This email is from John in the Philippines. Hi, guys. Hope both of you and all your listeners are safe from COVID. Oh, that's nice of you to say. Thank you. We are safe. Buckled down here. I'm in my house. Tyler's in his house. I hope you're all in your houses. Anyway, I'm currently playing Animal Crossing New Leaf on my 3DS, and I just have to weigh in on Tom Nook. He's a fairly controversial figure in the Animal Crossing community, but to me, he's such a good guy. And he's got points, like lettered points. So we're going to start off. Point A. You don't have to pay him if you don't want to increase the size of your home. Yes, he does force you into debt by just throwing a home at you without you asking for one. But come on, who doesn't want a home? And again, you don't have to pay him unless you want him to increase its size. B, there's no payment deadline. You can pay what amount you want and whenever you want. You only want to pay one bell for now? Go ahead. He won't charge you late fees nor any interest. Even your close friends in real life are not always that kind. C, he knows it can sometimes be demeaning to pay in person, especially when you only want to pay one bell out of your debt of 585,000 bells. So he asks you to pay through the ATM machine instead. How considerate is that? D, once you get the final expansion, you can choose not to pay for it. He won't pester you to pay, nor will you get any additional if you do pay. Well, technically, the Happy Home Academy group will open up something if you finish paying everything, but that's them, not Nook. Nook just trusts in you. Such a good guy. In conclusion, Nook is a very nice tanuki, a Japanese raccoon dog, and should be credited as such, and that's all I have to say on that. Anyway, thank you guys for doing what you do, and keep on playing. P.S. I seriously want to play Animal Crossing New Horizons just so I can put a life-size T-Rex skeleton outside my home. And then he actually has a picture here of his Animal Crossing home because he says, my favorite room in my Animal Crossing home, quote, because I'm a weeb. And it's got like a Pikachu picture, and it's great. It's wonderful. Thank you for sending that to us, John. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John. I disagree, and for one simple reason, it's because he doesn't ask you before he thrusts you into debt. I would probably accept that proposition if he's like, hey, I'll give you a house, you pay me back. I would be like, yes, that sounds great, Tom. But the fact that he just throws it on you and then says, hey, you owe me money, that's just not a good way to start a relationship, And it doesn't make me want to pay him back.
Ooh, you heard it here first, folks. Wolf Link, Tom Nook, Tyler.
Not a fan of Wolf Link, not a fan of Tom Nook.
Ooh, wow. Oh, we got a review. Should I read the review real quick?
Sure.
I threw my phone across the room. Just 1 second.
Gotta go pick up that phone. Did you like pull it out of your pocket and like accidentally just chuck it across the room?
Definitely dinged in the middle of the podcast, like amateur hour. So I turned it off and threw it across the room. We got one. You can review us if you want on your favorite podcast listening platform of choice. This is from on Apple Podcasts. It's from LCID5586. Best history of games podcast out there. Wanted to listen to a podcast about the history of gaming, and this was the first podcast I chose to listen to. So glad I did. I have started listening for a little over a day and have went through 5 episodes. Loving each one. Definitely worth a try. Thank you, LCID5586. You're my new friend.
Nice. Thanks.
Heroes. You can rate and review and subscribe to us anywhere you listen. You can email us at codexhistorypodcast@gmail.com. We're both on Twitter at @mecoletta for me and at SneakerElf, ELPH, for Tyler. I think that's it for the day, Tyler.
I think we got them all. I think we did it all.
Let's say bye to the listener together. You ready? 1,
Yeah.
2, 3.
Bye, listener.
Listener.